If you're struggling with detail placement and evolving shapes when you're modeling something or modeling in general, that video is going to be for you, because in this video we're going to be talking about detail distribution and its connection to design. Let's get started. So we have this bot from our sub-D course, and if you look at this bot, it's not a very complicated model, but there's a lot of detail here and there. And when you look at this model, you could get distracted by all these details and start thinking, oh wow, how the hell I'm gonna, even start modeling this, right? Where do I start? Well, when you're looking at shapes, whether it's someone else's model or something outside, let's say like, you've seen like a building or some kind of like a cool toy, or or a gun, whatever it is, right? Instead of looking at all the details, which is what your brain's gonna be doing, you need to start learning and teaching your brain how to remove all the noise from what you're seeing. And you teach it to start focusing on the main shapes. And that's gonna help you start thinking in shape language. So for example, if I'm going to grab this bot here, and it's not gonna be, perfect because there's a lot of reflections on this bot, but I'm going to try to remove this bit here. So let's see how good the creative generative fill is gonna be. So remove, right? And when I start removing these areas with concentration of detail, that's actually a pretty good fucking job, I'm not gonna lie. That's even better. Right, so you see, if I'm going to compare, right, this original image to this one, there is basically huge difference. And instead of looking at all these details now, right, you're looking at just a sphere, and that's the whole point. Okay, I want you to look at the sphere, because the sphere is the design language. This is the main shape of this whole head. And then what we have here, right, on sides, we have these additional kind of panels and cuts which define the primary detail. So what you do is you take the ball, you cut it from both sides, you cut it on the top to create a panel, you create these grooves, and that's your primary detail, more or less, right? It's going to define the shape of this head, plus this open hatch in the bottom for the engine. And these are just on top, additional details that have been cut into the mesh, right? You can go further and start removing stuff in here, right? So you could just go here and, it could, for example, nuke these, right? Again, it's going to be probably pretty tricky, but let's try. Delete that. So let's go here and let's remove that. And I think you're going to start seeing how simple this shape is going to be. And then you got these, parts and engine parts in the middle here that are quite distracting because it's a lot of details. See how clean this is? There's quite a lot of detail in the middle here, but we could easily remove this, right? So what I could do is create a, a plane here, and I could just, kind of trace this around here like this. Cool, more or less, right? And I'm going to fill this with one color, so with something like this, okay? See, now what you're seeing, right, is the ball on the top, just two, flaps here on the side over the wheels, and some area here for whatever it is. So you now start seeing shapes. So the shape on the bottom, which is kind of, contains all the mechanical parts, then the engine sticks out of it, goes up, and then there's a head, right? Then you got these two pipes. And if you flip between these two, you're gonna see how distracting these details really are. So what you wanna start trying to do is when you look at someone's design, try to paint it over in your head and start focusing on the primary shapes, just on the outline of the design, on the design, the main core design language, right? Don't get distracted by the details. And try to understand proportions of this design. Now, once you master proportions, you're going to be able to model anything from your head, because you will see something like some kind of like a reference, which is gonna inspire you, and you're gonna be able to create amazing stuff from your head without any references. It's a process. It doesn't, it takes more than 1 or 2 days, but that's the way to go about it. And when you work from references, try to, again, not copy what you're seeing, but get inspired by what you're seeing and try to derive from it your own shape. And that's the only way to grow as an artist, all right? Because repeating other people's work, it will teach you fuck all. You're gonna be a monkey with the knowledge of few tools, that's it, okay? So don't be a monkey. This is, how you should think about design, right? Now the key question is, where the hell do I place the details, right? How do I know where to place details? Well, look, if you have really good design and you have really good blockout, that blockout will tell you where to put your details, okay? Because when you look at the blockout, which is really well fleshed out and balanced, you will start seeing opportunities that gonna kind of present themselves when you're looking at the shapes. And if you get lost and you kind of don't know what to do, that's when you go to references, that's when you look for inspiration, and that's when you think, okay, I want something here, but I don't know what. Let me look at other people's work and see what they do, and maybe I can, come up with something original. That's how you should be thinking. Another thing that's really important to understand when you're detailing something is concentration of details, okay? That's really, really important. So you don't want to place details everywhere randomly. You want to concentrate them in specific areas. And you also want to frame them, right? So for example, you have concentration of detail here in the front, right? You got concentration of detail in here, right? So you got 2, 1, 2. You got some details here, you got some details here, and obviously on the bottom. But if you look here on the top, the very clean, plain spaces, a lot of them, right? Without any detail, okay? Except for these cuts. And the same on wheels, you got details concentrated outside the rim on the edge, but the middle is peaceful, okay? Look at here, for example, inside, right? We got this beam with a lot of stuff inside of it. So you got detail here, here, and here. But the beam itself is very clean and peaceful because it allows your eyes to glide from one island of a detail concentration to another. And that's how you should think. Another thing is that you can use details to guide you from to. So you could use details to kind of connect two areas together. Like for example, the lights, they're going to be bringing your eyes all the way to the back, right? So they will link the front with the back, okay? Then you got framing, for example. You got multiple framings here, all right? That's detail inside of a detail, right? And again, everything follows the same principle. Concentration, empty space, concentration, empty space. Empty space, concentration, concentration. See how it works? Once you flesh out your blockout and you know what you want, in our case, the blockout is super simple. Look at this. It's a cube, literally. That's a cube, right? And that's a cube in the shape of a triangle. Then you got two cylinders and a cube in the bottom. And that's it. That's the whole blockout. But then it's up to you what you're going to do with these shapes. What kind of game you're going to, what kind of play you're going to create between them, right? What kind of discussion, conversation you're going to create between these parts. And you do that through placing detail very strategically. And you can do this starting with primary detail. So for example, these massive cuts, right? Or this panel here, that's a primary detail. Or for example, these massive, protrusion lights. Or this, massive panel here in the front, that's a primary detail. The same with these two on the top, right? And another thing that you should pay attention to is going to be consistency of details. So what I mean by that, and to show you what I mean, I'm going to pull the Mac from our upcoming course for plasticity. It's a massive course in which I'm going to teach you how to build this Mac, including the entire interior. So let me just show you. So there's a full interior, fully functional. The Mac is actually mechanically functional. All the joints, everything inside the hatch, there's a ladder that pops in here, can be animated and actually will be animated. So, but anyway, what I want to talk about is, is the design. So if I remove all the lines, which by the way are really distracting, right? Now I can kind of focus on a little bit of a cleaner design language and look at, for example, the angles, right? How consistent the angles are. So for example, this angle here, which is by the way, it's 65 degrees, follows the angle here, follows the angle here, and follows the angle here, and on the guns. Then you got angles here and here. You got these angles here on the back, which follow this angle on the front. And the angle game is basically present in the entire Mac, including the planar shifts, which are all these kind of changes of the plane through chamfers and cuts, which create amazing highlights and add a lot of interest. And if you look at this whole Mac, including the interior, the design language is very consistent. So it's all kind of like, aggressive cuts. Let me just hide this this woman here, this pilot. You got aggressive cuts and, kind of like a very futuristic sort of, aggressive planar shifts, a lot of chamfers and kind of very dramatic surfaces, right? So the interior follows the, the exterior. And even inside of the cabin, you got angles following angles outside and inside. So it's all a game of repeatable angles, echoing, and kind of consistency of detail. But in order to achieve this, you need to start with a very, very balanced blockout. So let me show you the very, very early blockout for this Mac, which is, I think, video number 4 in a course. So that's like 2 hours in, okay, or maybe 1.5 hours in. This is how much time I need to spend on blockouts, okay? If you're going to, do a half-assed job on a blockout, you will never create cool designs, ever, right? This is the most important stage. It's like washing before date. If you ain't gonna take a shower, good luck. Do you know what I mean? You follow? And you need to play with the blockout until you're gonna get the balance, proportions, and distribution of elements, angles that you want. And if you didn't, you're gonna go back to drawing board and keep trying, okay? Because these angles in this Mac, right now, they're gonna define the whole design, okay? If you look at this this blockout from any angle you want, it's it's proportional, clean, and makes sense. There's a clearance between the parts. You got clear design language, and obviously these are not fully fleshed out, and I changed the shape a little bit. But if you look at the overall balance, it's going to stay the same until the end. It doesn't change because it was simply very well designed. Okay, so that's the key to designing anything, right? So if you're struggling with placing details or driving your own designs, what you want to do, you want to sit the fuck down with good references and you want to study the shit out of them, right? Think about the shape proportions, about the shape distribution, about the shape angles. Even grab it to Photoshop, put it in, paint over, remove all the distractions and look at the shapes. How these designers, the top designers, come up with amazing stuff, right? Because they start like you from nothing. It's just a cube in Blender or whatever the hell they're using. It's no magic. They have to build something from nothing. So they build it piece by piece. And how do they do it? They do it because they know how to drive really good blockouts, and they experiment with blockouts until they're gonna get to the point they say, oh, okay, this is great, we can move on, right? So, don't rush it. And another thing, okay, this is really important too. Learn how to fucking render. Because if you don't know how to render shit, how lighting works, how camera works, how composition works, then you will never be good at designing stuff, okay? Because these are all connected. In fact, you will never get any jobs or any gigs because without portfolio, you have nothing to show for. So if you're gonna have some shit in your portfolio that's random and just half-assed, good luck getting hired. It ain't gonna fucking happen, okay? So you have to learn this. That's why we created the Rendering University, into which I packed my personal 30 years of experience in visual space. And I teach you everything I know about camera work, composition, lighting, all that, negative space, visual anchors, all these things that are essential, not important, they're essential for understanding how design works, all right? And it's going to help you tremendously when you're going to be designing something from, from scratch. So just, grabbing a cube, having fun, all right? And the only way to get past this stage when you look at the cube and you have no fucking clue what to do, because you cannot model anything without a tutorial, is expanding your visual library through studying other people's work. And by other people, I mean people who are actually really good, right? So go to ArtStation, find the top dogs, see who they follow these people and start studying. And then gather references, as many as you can. I have about 80 gigabytes of PureRef files on my drive, okay? 80 gigabytes, I'm not even joking. I got about 10,000 screenshots from Star Citizen alone. 10,000. I spent, I think, 4 weeks screenshotting the shit out of this game. That's how you study, okay? These things come with time and you have to start somewhere, so you may just as well start with our course Jumpstart 2.0, which is only $5. It's basically a steal. It will teach you all the basics, in Blender, and from there you can move on. And if you're more serious about studying and you really want to achieve something and learn 3D and how hard surface works, then consider getting our Academy program, especially the coaching version, which gives you access to us personally for 6 months. And in addition to this, you get lifetime access to all our products and courses. So you're going to get the premium curriculum, which will basically, if you go through this curriculum, there's no excuses for you not to be able to design cool stuff, okay? Because we cover everything. So anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.